Yeah, what's up, guys, and welcome back to the Keegan and Company podcast, Psychology of series. In this episode today, we are talking about the psychology of lucky girl syndrome. So interesting. Such a interesting viral TikTok trend that I'm keen to unpack today. I came across the lucky girl syndrome when I was having a conversation with my fiance, and she was talking about how when we first met, she felt she was in this very magnetic time of her life where she felt like good things was just happening to her. The cup of coffee was paid for her, or she got the job that she really loved, or she got into the university course that she really loved. She met me, which she said was the best thing ever, but I'm still unsure. No, she will say that. But she said she was in this very like magnetic time, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting that there's an actual phrase for it. And she's like, yeah, it's like this whole viral TikTok thing that the girlies are starting to talk about. I was like, okay, well, tell me more about it. And essentially, how they describe it is like the lucky girl syndrome is built on this idea that if you simply believe in good things, that good things are going to happen to you, and they will. Like, you affirm it, you expect it, and then you notice it actually showing up. And I think it's a very attractive idea. I think a lot of the times we want things that are easy and that are simple and that just like naturally come into our lives. I imagine you probably saw this and think, okay, well, yeah, lucky girl syndrome. Like, how do I get a bit of lucky girl syndrome? Or actually, like, I've experienced a bit of lucky girl syndrome. Like, where does this actually come from? And there's actually some really interesting literature and psychology research around this. My background is professional rugby league, so I used to play rugby league. I'm now a psychology student, and learn through research, through literature, but also through conversations on this podcast. We talk to some of the best like athletes and academics and professionals. So getting to sit down and actually learn this was really impressive. I spoke to I guess like one of my mentors, Dr. Megan Lee. She's been incredible learning these types of concepts, and lucky girl syndrome is largely around confirmation bias. It's around the locus of control, which is another psychological concept which I'll touch on, and then I also want to touch on a few action items that we can actually take away into our everyday life. So when we think lucky girl syndrome, we think, okay, well, what is the internal dialogue that we're actually telling ourselves that inevitably puts the energy out there into the world? I want to talk about the first psychological mechanism around confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is described as the tendency to search for, notice, and remember information that confirms what you already believe, and to unconsciously ignore and dismiss anything that contradicts it. So interesting. So when we're younger and someone might have told you that you're really good at public speaking, you would naturally flow on from that. If someone tells you that you are so beautiful, then you're naturally going to believe it. I remember I had this friend, and his parents used to tell him that he was like the most gorgeous boy growing up. So until like the age, like, and don't get me wrong, he's like a great looking guy, but until like year 10 or 11, he genuinely thought he was God's gift, that he was like the most beautiful guy. And he's like, yeah, like every girl wants me. And his confidence in that was incredible. But just because at a young age, he, every little experience or every little thing just confirmed that. So if a girl had a crush on him on school, he'd be like, yeah, of course she does. Like, it confirmed what he had already been told to himself, and that inner dialogue had continued to play out. It's the exact same when someone would say, oh, this athlete performs under pressure. He always performs under pressure when it comes to, the last minute and he has to kick the goal to win the game. Give it to that person because he always performs under pressure. It's so interesting when you start to actually believe these things, and you, it can automatically seem like it is happening. And then on the other side of it, when you have an experience or something that goes against that belief, we dismiss it. If it's contradictory, we dismiss it. So say if they, perform under pressure and they had to kick the final field goal and then they miss it, they would automatically just disregard it and not bring it to be the front of mind. For me personally, I remember my parents used to always say that like good things would just happen to me. Like they called it like bum on butter. And I used to hear that from when I was such a little kid. And so every time I, made a rep side or, signed my first professional contract or, you know, did well at uni or anything like that, it would just confirm that good things were naturally going to happen to me. When I was 24 years old, I was medically retired from the NRL due to concussion. Touch wood, I'm all right now. But in that period, it was such an interesting, weird transition period where I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And to be honest, my whole career ended prematurely. Like I thought I was going to go on and play Origin and play for Australia, but it was kind of stopped quick. So those next couple years, while it was hard and there was a bit of a mourning period, I kind of had this weird self belief that things were just automatically going to work out. And then fast forward, like 4 years down the track, and I'm doing this podcast, like, oh, see how like great it's going. I think, well, of course things just work out. That's just the way it always happens. And I think a big part of that ties into the locus of control. The locus of control is a psychological concept about where you believe the power of your life sits. So they look at it as internal and external. Internal, you believe that the outcomes are driven by your own actions, your decisions, your effort, your mindset. When something goes wrong, you look inwards. When something goes right, you own it. So you might hear someone say, like, I am in control of what happens to me. That is very much internal. That is taking control of what happens. The, I guess, lucky girl syndrome, where it can be seen as a lot of an external. So you believe your outcomes are largely determined by outside forces, luck, other people, circumstances, environment, things happen to you rather than because of you. You might hear life is mostly out of your hands. And I think my personal view of this is it's kind of a balance between the two. I do believe that we do make our own luck and the energy we put out, we receive. I think reciprocity is a real thing. When you are generous and when you give to others, good things happen to you in return. But I also think a really great starting point, and this is kind of where I'm angling at towards people who might want to lean into their lucky girl syndrome era, is around that external, where you genuinely might believe that good things happen to you, but really embody that. I think you hear a lot of people write down affirmations, or they'll have them up on their window or in their bathroom in their mirror when they see it. Because I think when you see it and when you genuinely start to believe it, you put that energy out into the world. And then you start to look for it, and then you confirm it, and then you believe it. I think it is a really great starting point. So I want to talk about action items, like what we can actually do to, I guess, um, increase our lucky girl era. And I'm talking about lucky girl era. This is lucky boy era as well. This is a combination of the two. When I was talking to Dr. Megan Lee this morning, I said, I want to finish this conversation and I want the listeners and the audience to have a takeaway item. I said, what do you think is the biggest takeaway for this? And she said gratitude. And I was so excited when she said gratitude, because I think gratitude is one of the most incredible things. It's become a lot more well researched now. It rewires our brains from a pessimistic point of view to a much more optimistic point of view, which again, the literature will say people who are more optimistic tend to live healthier, happier, more successful lives to those who are pessimistic. Really interesting stuff. For me, when I got into gratitude and I started practicing gratitude, it was largely around writing 3 things that I was grateful for every day. Cooper Chapman does this really well, where he's been doing it for probably like over 1,000 days, where all these little moments that he has in his life, he'll write them down, and then over time, our brain actually rewires ourselves to start looking for the good things in life. Megan had a real trouble with the habit or the act of actually writing them down. So what she does in the moment is that if she's sitting there having a cup of coffee in nature with her son, she'll really feel the gratitude and she'll take notice of it. And when you start doing that time and time and time and time again, we start to train our brains to actually feel a lot more optimistic and to really be present and to be really center and content with what's going on. And I think that's a really beautiful part. So while I'm a big advocate of writing them down, I think you can also feel it. And you can get in the habit of floating in and out of it. But I think when you're really in it, it's an incredible thing. The other thing that comes to mind is around negative thoughts, negative mindset, the pessimistic point of view, the glass half full point of view. I think we have, over 60,000 thoughts every single day. So the fact that all of them are going to be positive is probably pretty unlikely. We did a whole episode around rumination, so I won't go too much into that. But what I will say around this, and it obviously ties into this whole lucky girl syndrome because we don't want to be ruminating on these bad thoughts, is that you listening actually have the ability to catch your thoughts and redirect your thoughts. Catching it is one of the best things that you can do. So if you're sitting there, if you're driving the car, if you're in university, if you're going out into the sporting field, whatever that inner voice that I call it like almost like an inner bitch, like this little voice that's in the back of your head that tells you you can't do something, you're not good at something, bad things happen to you. What I want you to do next time that happens is I want you to catch it. I want you to recognize it. A really great thing to do is actually write it down and read it back to yourself. When you read it back to yourself, first of all, you might think, wow, that's actually ridiculous. There's actually no chance that's actually true. But then also imagine what you would do if you were to say that to a friend or a family member. There's no way you would talk to anyone like that. The voices that you have in your head, there's no way that you would say that to your friend or a family member. So why are you going to say it to yourself? Recognize that the fact that it's probably not true. And just because we have a thought doesn't make it true. Gratitude, catch your negative thoughts. And then finally, I would really encourage you to tell us your lucky girl experience or your lucky boy experience. What are the little times in your life where, things have really started to be going well? Firstly, I really want to hear it. I want to hear all these really great stories, but then I also want you to embed it, and I want you to start looking for these things. Start confirming these really great things that are happening into your life because, when we can live in our lucky girl era, whether that being through our own confirmation or our own lives, I think that's a beautiful place to be. And I think the gratitude and catching the thoughts is a really great action items to go forward. Guys, if you like this episode or if you think it resonates, could I get you to hit that little subscribe button? It does mean more than you ever know. It lets us grow the podcast and have beautiful conversations with guests. It allows us to do more episodes like this. So I thank you so much and enjoy the day.